So after many years of waiting, Metroid Prime 4 is finally officially dropping on December 4th, 2025, and I myself am very excited. I'm seeing a lot of mixed reactions on YouTube, but honestly, I wasn't really engaging with the internet when the last Metroid Prime games came out. There really wasn't many ways to engage with people the last time a Metroid Prime came out. And so, I don't know if this is normal. I know that it does seem like some people are jumping to conclusions and overreacting a little bit. But I wanted to do a couple things for you today. One, hopefully I could put some of you at ease, because I am actually going to react to this trailer. And I'm going to do a frame-by-frame, or basically shot-by-shot breakdown. And I know a lot of videos have done that already on YouTube, and many of them have done an excellent job. I've seen Rule of Two Reviews breakdown. I've seen Fat Brett's breakdown. Those are both very good breakdowns, by the way. And so some of the things I point out in this trailer, I will be, either expanding upon or repeating certain things that they've mentioned. But there are some things that I've mentioned that I haven't seen anybody talking about. There are certain things that really stand out to me, and I can't wait to share those with you guys. And one other thing I did want to let you guys know before we get into the trailer itself is we actually did get a little bit of a leak and some new information. I don't think Nintendo is going to mind people seeing this because, again, at some point we're all going to see this anyway. So essentially, the box art for the physical edition has now been revealed. People have got these editions in Japan, and some people have translated it. And so here it is listed on the screen. And one of the things that it auto-translates to is travel through time and space. So at this point, there was a lot of rumors that this game was going to be dealing with time travel, but now it's just saying it outright. And so that is confirmed. There will be time travel in this game. And man, does that blow up the possibilities of speculations and all the different enemies we can see in all the different locations. It says, explore a world in 3D. Return to an unknown world. Now that part's interesting because it could be a world from Metroid Prime 1, 2, or 3, or it could just be a part of the game that we're introduced to earlier in the game, and then we return to that world through time travel where the aesthetic and the atmosphere looks totally different. So it's tough to say if this is like a callback and if this has anything to do with the Metroid Prime trilogy, or if this is just going to be, if it's referring to itself, like we're returning to an earlier location from the game. And then it says, return to your original world. Now again, I don't know if these two things are meant to be separate, so it's tough to say. I do think it'd be cool if this game is involving some serious time travel, that we would see stuff from the original Prime trilogy. I think the possibilities are endless. I know some people hate the aspect of time travel, but we know from, articles and various interviews in the past that Metroid developers have been flirting with the idea of time travel for a very long time at this point. So yeah, at this point, it's pretty much confirmed. And I'm looking forward to experiencing it on December 4th. But let's get into this trailer. Again, I know it's been covered a lot, but there is so many things in here that I think are fascinating, and some things that I haven't even seen anybody talk about whatsoever. So first off, we see this new world. I think this part looks really, really cool, really fascinating, really menacing. It doesn't, to me, look like space pirate technology necessarily, and so I think this might be some sort of new threat that we haven't been introduced to before. And so, I don't know. We'll have to see what this all amounts to. But I love the aesthetic of this place. This place is also brand new. We hadn't seen any of this in the previous trailers. Something that you'll notice is all the lightning that's striking in the atmosphere. It's only really hitting on the bridge. And so I wonder if this has anything to do with it, if this bridge is like a conduit. Maybe it's like charging for something. I don't know, but that is an interesting detail that none of these buildings seem to be hit with a lightning, but the bridge always does. On this next frame, we see what they call either Viola or Viola, but it's Samus's motorcycle, which has been the center of plenty of controversy. I do think it feels a little bit weird in this universe, but ultimately, I think it's pretty cool. I'm excited to ride this thing. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But one thing I do notice in this, and I'm sure many of you notice this as well, is just look at the color scheme. Just look at the aesthetic. Like this red section over here, and then there's purple sections over here. This is going to match it, like from a design standpoint, from a color scheme standpoint, it matches Samus's suit. I think these two are going to be very connected. Probably the instant you get this suit, you're going to get this motorcycle. So it'll be interesting to see, like, can you just spawn the motorcycle wherever you're at? Are there any additional abilities that you get beyond getting to travel on wheels, And so, yeah, these seem to be very, very connected, and I'll be interested to see where that goes. So then we have this shot here. Samus, jumps out of the tunnel, and based on the way the shot kind of pans in and zooms in, I think it's fair to assume that she just got, this motorcycle and is now entering this world that has been the center of controversy. I do not think it's an open world. I think it is a hub in the way that, say, like Ocarina of Time was a hub, but it's not an open world in the sense that, like, Breath of the Wild was, where you can go straight to the final boss or you can go to any place at any time. I don't think it's quite like that. If they do that, I will hate this game, because that is antithetical to what Metroid has always been, which is like, you travel to one location, then you backtrack to use that item that where you previously couldn't access. That's Metroid, is lots of backtracking, lots of exploring. And so now we're in this big open section. Again, may or may not be open world. I personally do not think it's open world. This desert looks very, very deserted. Some people have thoughts on that. I like the idea of riding around on this motorcycle. If you think of big desert areas like on Arrakis, in Dune, or, Tatooine in Star Wars, a lot of these areas just look very remote and deserted. And especially if this isn't an open world, I don't think there should be a ton of things to interact with, because this might just be an area for, transitioning, going from one location to another. Imagine just like Metroid Prime 2 with the temple grounds. But instead of the temple grounds, you have like this area that you go from place to place to access different areas. So let's go ahead and look at the next shot. See, now I'm going to actually play the footage here. And this one, I've seen some people talk about how the gameplay and how the visuals look really sloppy or not that great. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've been a Nintendo fanboy my whole life and I'm not necessarily a PC gamer, that these graphics don't necessarily look horrible to me. But this shot specifically does have me quite worried. This is such a quick and sloppy looking wheelie that Samus does, where it looks like certain frames are being skipped. And I saw some people complaining about this, and at first I thought that, that was kind of a silly complaint, because I figured, I make YouTube videos, I know what editing's like. I figured that this probably was just like a jump cut, and they just edited it as a way to make it look like things are happening quickly. The problem is, then you go look at this shot later, and the same thing happens, where Samus goes from completely flat to popping a wheelie in one frame, and it just doesn't look smooth. It looks kind of low quality, and I really just hope they, really smooth that out and patch that out, because at first I just thought, that was just, editing, but why would they edit the same way in this shot as well? To me, that makes no sense. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and continue on here. Now again, one thing we notice in this big desert open section is we notice over here what looks like some really foresty, lush type green area, and we notice a massive, massive tree in the center. That looks like Vuros. The area we were shown earlier in trailers, we noticed that there was a big tree in the center of that world, and so at the very least, it looks like Vuros is connected to this hub. We also see a bridge over here to another location as well. Looks like there's a couple things on the ground here that you could interact with. Not sure what those things are. And then in the next shot, we get another angle of Samus on the motorcycle. We've got some sort of building here that's smoking, so maybe it was attacked. Maybe that's something to explore. Who knows? That might just be atmospheric. But again, you see the tree back there. You see the mountains way back on the distance. This might be the snowy area that we see later on in the trailer, but not sure with that one. Then this was a shot that, honestly, maybe Nintendo even regrets having in it, because I think this spot looks so desolate that I think a lot of people are upset about it. I think also just having Samus in open air feels odd to people. I will say, as someone who has been playing Metroid games as long as I've been able to retain memories, I do not have a problem with this as long as it is an A, open world where I can go any point at any time, where I can go anywhere at any time, because that's just not Metroid. And B, if these other worlds that are all connected to this hub feel isolating in a signature Metroid way. This could be a fun section. I think this could be something, exciting and new. Metroid always likes to try something new every once in a while, with the Metroid Prime 2, where you have the two different worlds between the light and the dark world, even silly, somewhat gimmicky things where, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, where you fight, Ridley as you're falling down a tunnel for, minutes and minutes. And so, yeah, they like to try different things, and so I don't necessarily hate this. Now, we see more locations. Now we see those mountains a little bit more up close with some of the mist around them and everything. Maybe that is that snowy area that we see later in the trailer, but again, not sure. Then we see some enemies. Samus is going to be combating those. We see right here is a disc that comes right out of the back of her motorcycle, and it goes ahead and locks onto the enemy. Not sure how much that is just going to be happening, with like auto assist, or how much we're actually aiming with that. But this part here did look like a lot of fun to me. I am looking forward to doing this. Then we got some enemies to engage with. And then if you look back here, listen, whether this is a hub or this is an open world, whatever it is, it's pretty big. Because you can see, some stuff way off in the distance over there. So it looks like we could go pretty far in a lot of different directions. Again, I hope, and I just think it's going to be a hub. But time will tell. All right, so now we're arriving to that location that we saw first thing in the trailer. This place reminds me, and a lot of people have been saying this in all of their reactions, and I completely agree. This place reminds me of Skytown from Metroid Prime 3, but more like a evil, sinister, looking Skytown. Could it be Skytown after plenty of time travel? I guess it's possible. I don't think that's the case, but man, when you introduce time travel into it, there could be a lot of things going on. But I do think this is going to be its own unique place. I love the atmosphere here. I think it looks super cool. Now, when Samus is entering this area, we get this shot. And this is obviously, a cutscene right here. I think this is the shot you're going to get every time we're entering one of these areas and there's like a transition period where the game has to load that world in. Kind of like the elevators from Metroid Prime 1. I'm guessing that this is going to be what you see every time Samus arrives to one of these locations. So Samus drives in. Then what you see down here on the bottom right, you see something interesting which says speed limited. And I think what this means is you didn't really see this at any other point in the trailer. You're only seeing it now that Samus is indoors. Personally, what I think this is just think of Breath of the Wild when you're riding around on your horse and you enter Kakariko Village and you can't reach top speed with your horse. I think it's going to be the same thing here. I think you could come in with your motorcycle. What's interesting is, although they are going to limit your speed, can I drive this motorcycle back into this tunnel? Or is Samus forced to hop off of this motorcycle here and then just advance on foot? I think that'll be really interesting. Think of like the Halo trilogy where, you take like a ghost and then you push it into areas where it's not really intended to go, but you still have the option. So I'm really interested to see if we will have that option. Personally, I hope we don't. We need to stick to Samus being on foot. Otherwise, this might feel really gimmicky really quickly. Whatever this world is, I don't think it has anything to do with the Lamorne. You see like some structure over here on the right with some lava flow. It looks like this is not a natural formation. And so I do believe that maybe this could be some space pirate technology, possibly. That looks like on the left, Samus is targeting something naturally as you're arriving, and those look like screens. That kind of reminds me of the various screens that you can scan and the logs that you can scan in, the Phazon Mines in Metroid Prime 1. And so, this has certain things that do remind me of space pirate technology. So Samus is now advancing further into it, and one thing that you do see on the screen is this is definitely the furthest part that we've seen of Metroid Prime 4, unless you're talking about a cutscene. But as far as gameplay goes, we haven't advanced this far yet until this trailer. Why? Because we got 65 missiles down here on the bottom right, which is the most we've had. We're also up to 4 energy tanks now, and in the previous trailers, we were only seeing like 1 or 2 max. And so again, some interesting technology here. This looks like some sort of big, gigantic cannon. Maybe space pirate technology, but I don't know, man. Like some people have mentioned, and I kind of agree with it too, when you look at this thing, it doesn't necessarily look as jagged and as rough around the edges as space pirate technology typically looks. It does look evil, but it looks more like elegant in a way. And so, who knows? This could be a space pirate stronghold or outpost, but it could also belong to some new type of enemy. And so, Samus is fighting here, this enemy explodes, and then we get to these guys, and people have mentioned this as well. This does remind me of the Steam Lords from Metroid Prime 3. They certainly have that look to it. I just think that's a convenience thing. I don't necessarily think they're connected, but if you wanted to speculate that maybe, again, this is some form of time travel, maybe we are seeing bits of Skytown in the future, technically it is possible. Then we got some other enemies here. I will be coming back and talking about all of these enemies later on because I do think there are some really, really interesting developments, and it's one of the things that nobody has talked about yet. So again, I will be coming back to these enemies in a second. Then we see this big open area. Again, another very open location, so it'll be interesting to see how Prime 4 handles this. But this looks like this snowy area. In the background, we see some zip lines back here, which also reminds me of the zip lines that we utilize in Skytown and Metroid Prime 3. So it's really crazy. I mean, are all of these locations from Prime 3? Again, I don't necessarily think so, but at the very least, it seems like they took a lot of a lot of inspiration from Prime 3's gameplay. And so Samus is looking over, and she sees this massive pack of wolf-like creatures. I think these are pretty cool. Always nice to see what the natural predators look like of the world. And so now they're attacking Samus. And one thing that just looks crazy to me is you see these wolves charging at Samus, and then on the top left of the screen, you see the amount of red dots symbolizing enemies. Samus is surrounded, man. There has been a lot of different things that I've seen in the footage so far and in the trailers that indicate to me that Samus is dealing with more adversaries than normal, because Samus now has different kind of dash abilities. I think the gameplay is going to be, for the most part, true to a Metroid Prime game. The people who have played the demos have told me that it feels like a true Metroid Prime game, but I think the gameplay is going to be accelerated a little bit. And if you're truly surrounded by this many enemies that we're seeing on the top left side of the screen, man, this is probably going to be the most action-packed Metroid Prime game that we've ever played. Couple things to notice. Samus is now advanced further in the game. We know that this is later than the lava areas that we saw earlier, because now we're up to 5 energy tanks. We're also up to 80 missiles down on the bottom right here. Also, she seemed to get this new device because I don't know what this is, but 70 out of 80? What is this going on here? But this is new. Also, on the bottom left side of the screen, now not only do you have the missiles, but you have some sort of fire icon. And so don't know what that is exactly. And the last thing I noticed on this screen that nobody's really talked about is that on the top right of the map, there's really nothing going on. There's no structures, there's no detailed map there. It's really just a little icon that represents Samus and our direction, and the rest of it is all deserted. I keep bringing it up as a comparison, but what this kind of reminds me of is when you're in the sandstorm in Gerudo Valley or Gerudo Desert in Breath of the Wild. You know how you basically can't tell where you're at on the map because, there's a sandstorm? Now it's like this snowy windstorm. And so, again, drawing parallels between that, I know that's going to be concerning for some of you guys. I do not think this is an open world game, but there's some ways where maybe it drew some inspiration from past Zelda games. Now, moving on to the next screen. Now, here's the really interesting shot I want you guys to see. And now I'm going to get into, to me, what is one of the most fascinating details that no one is talking about. I haven't seen anybody talk about it. I'm not going to say no one because I'm sure you guys have seen certain videos that I haven't seen. But these wolves are lunging at Samus, attacking Samus, and they are doing some serious damage. Now, Samus was just hit twice in quick succession, so it doesn't really look like you're going to have many, if any, iframes. You didn't really have many, if any, in past Metroid Prime games. So she's hit in quick succession here, and both of these hits from these wolves took 30 health. That is a lot. Again, I have played Prime 1, Prime 2, and Prime 3 a countless number of times. The amount of enemies that do that much damage to you when they hit you, it's not very high. And then when we go back and we look at some of these prior enemies, when this enemy explodes on Samus, that also does 30 health. And then this enemy does a significant amount of health. And then this Steam Lord looking creature who hits Samus does about 35 health. I just went and tested Metroid Prime Remastered just to confirm that I wasn't making this stuff up and I remember things correctly. And I was walking straight up into Space Pirates in the Phazon Mines. And yeah, sometimes it seemed like they were doing about 15 to 20 health tops. Now we're looking at 30 to 35. And so, is this going to be the most punishing and potentially difficult Metroid Prime game yet? Because again, this was just 2 quick hits from these wolves here, and Samus just lost more than half of her energy tank like that. That's crazy to me, and that's not something that we're typically used to. Is it possible they're playing on a hard setting for this trailer? I kind of doubt it, but I guess that is possible. But yeah, so this might be really difficult. They could also introduce something like, you know how Echoes of Wisdom had Zelda just being able to drop a bed and heal herself at any point. And so because of that, you know, there could be reasons why some enemies could do more damage because there's easier and more frequent ways to heal yourself. But if that isn't a part of the game where Samus isn't able to carry around like healing items that she could just use at any point, if this is just purely dealing more damage, this is going to be a what looks like a much tougher and much more punishing Metroid Prime game, and I'm kind of surprised that I don't see anybody talking about it because to me that seems like a big deal. Like you got to be very careful advancing through this game. So now we get to hear some sort of altar. Obviously, this looks like a Lamorne. It has kind of the what do you call this? Like an engraving or this round kind of open area that represents the gem on their heads. So this is definitely Lamorne technology. What this altar does, I don't know. Does this have to do with some sort of transportation, time travel, anything like that? Just pure speculation with this frame, so I have no idea. But it does look like there's some sort of protective barrier, it looks like, around it. So, you know, that's all interesting, but can't really draw too much from this. In the next shot, it looks like maybe we're in like some sort of caves or mines of that really snowy area because, you know, just from the fog and from the cold mist and everything, it looks like this is a frozen over cold area. You can even see like little icicles in the background, that sort of thing. And Samus is using what looks like a grapple whip of some sorts. Similar to Metroid Prime 3, she can use this to open different devices. Remember how in Metroid Prime 3 you were ripping off shields from enemies and you were opening things with your grapple beam? Same thing, Metroid Prime 4. Now, similar to the section where we're taking out the wolves, we got about the same amount of missiles, we got about the same amount of energy tanks, so I really do think that these are, you know, very, very close locations to one another. So Samus then opens it, and some people have pointed out this as well, and I do agree. This is interesting because this kind of looks like a Metroid egg. And although these eggs, hypothetical eggs, they look more oval shaped, they do share the coloring, they are a little bit more pointed, but if they were Metroid eggs, this would actually make sense because we know from various Space Pirate logs from Metroid Prime 1 and Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, the cold weather makes the Metroids more docile and more manageable. So the fact that they would keep Metroid Life, Metroid Eggs, in these cold containers in a very cold location, that makes a whole lot of sense. Which again, might lead me to think that this is again a space pirate type outpost, because, you know, they always love messing with Metroids, especially in the Metroid Prime games. They're always utilizing Metroids to their advantage, sometimes to their disadvantage even. Then we get to this area again. This is almost certainly the same area that we saw in the beginning of the trailer with all the lightning and the atmosphere. Samus is going out to this area, which looks like, you know, it's being hit by lightning, possibly drawing in electricity, which once again makes me think maybe this has to do, you know, with those bridges that were drawing power and everything. Seeing a lot of, you know, connective tissue there. Then we got our 3 bombs there, so we know Samus has her bombs, but no power bombs yet. So as far as 5 energy tanks in, we're not going to have our power bombs just yet, but I'm sure they'll be showing up at some point. Then we got this next shot. We got some wind turbines. Based on the wind turbines, based on the motion that Samus is making, I'm sure that we're going to get some basically wind resistance. It's going to stop us from moving forward. And so same amount of missiles, same amount of energy tanks. And then in the next shot, we see that this bridge, whatever it is actually crumbling to the ground. Now, my theory is that Samus actually does this on purpose with her like grapple whip type item. And because if you're getting resistance from this, I don't know if she's being followed or if she wants this taken down. But what I would do if I was playing Metroid right here is I would try to grapple whip this wind turbine and see if I can interact with it in some way. So it's possible that Samus just rips it down with that device herself, because again, she just recently got it, so it would make sense that the game would want to utilize it. So yeah, that's my theory, is you're actually going to be doing this yourself as Samus is ripping this bridge down. For what reason? Who knows? Now in this next shot, we get a gorgeous shot of Sylux, who's looking just as menacing as ever. They are building up a lot of tension between Sylux and Samus, similar to Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, where they're constantly squaring off, seeing each other, staring down each other. You even see in this next shot where, once again, Sylux can be seen in Samus's visor, just like they showed us in the original trailer. Maybe the second trailer, but... Then we see Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Switch and Switch 2 Edition, and then we see the release date, December 4th, 2025. Guys, I am excited. I think there's a lot of exciting things to take away from this trailer. I'm not just saying I'm just going to simp for this game regardless of what happens, what they do. I am a little bit concerned about this hub world. I want this Metroid game to feel like a Metroid game, but I think it will. They're just taking some risks in between because we all want Metroid to sell well. And, you know, it's never been this big thing that a lot of people enjoy, so I don't want it to go, you know, full Breath of the Wild. But at the same time, if they're going to try to change up the formula a little bit in ways to intrigue new fans, I get it. Because at the end of the day, you know, this game has got to make money. They scrapped everything. They restarted the whole project. The budget for this game seems to be really, really high at this point. And I was actually looking at Kiwi Talks' page on Twitter. I've recommended his channel and his Twitter page many times before. He said just to break even, he speculates that this game is going to have to sell between 4.5 to 6 million units, which means it would have to be the best-selling Metroid Prime game and just Metroid game overall ever. And so again, it makes sense to me that they're trying to spice up things and take some risks so that this game might be more appealing to a bigger audience. You know, for me, I would have been fine with just another game that follows the same model of the trilogy before it, but I get why they're doing it. So yeah, I am still excited. I understand why they're doing some of the things they're doing. Again, the biggest thing that stood out to me was how much health these enemies are dealing out. And so let me know if there's anything that stood out to you guys. I'm very excited about this game. Got plenty more videos coming out. I've also got Metroid Prime 3 story coming out soon as well. I have the story of Metroid Prime 1 explained, the story of Metroid Prime 2 explained. They're both live on the channel. and you'll be getting Prime 3 as well, so you'll be completely caught up before Prime 4 drops in December. Thanks for watching as always. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Metroid and Zelda content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.